Nand had just returned home from office on a warm Saturday afternoon when he saw his father sitting quietly at the dining table with a small notebook, a few bank passbooks, and several fixed deposit receipts spread in front of him. His father looked slightly worried. "Nand," he said softly, adjusting his spectacles, "can you help me file my income tax return this year?" Nand immediately pulled a chair and sat beside him. "Of course, Papa. But why are you looking so tense? You only have pension and bank interest income, right?" His father smiled faintly. "Not even pension now. After retirement, my only income comes from fixed deposits and the savings account interest. Earlier, your office accountant used to help me, but this year he shifted to another city. I thought maybe you could help." Nand nodded confidently. "How difficult can it be? We'll do it together." But within a few minutes, his confidence slowly disappeared. There were multiple FD receipts from different banks, savings account passbooks, TDS certificates, and some papers mentioning Form 15H. Nand scratched his head. "Papa, why are there so many entries? And what is this TDS deduction?" His father laughed gently. "That's exactly why I asked for help. Even I don't fully understand these things." Nand suddenly remembered only one person who could explain complicated financial matters in a simple way: Nilkanth. Without wasting time, Nand picked up his phone and called him. "Sir, are you free this evening? Papa needs help in filing his income tax return." Nilkanth calmly replied, "Come home after dinner. Bring all the bank documents, FD receipts, PAN card, Aadhaar card, and Form 26AS if possible." That evening, Nand and his father reached Nilkanth's house carrying a large folder full of documents. As usual, Nilkanth welcomed them warmly and offered tea. After arranging all the papers neatly on the table, Nilkanth smiled and asked, "So, Uncle, after retirement, your income mainly comes from bank interest?" Nand's father nodded. "Yes, mostly fixed deposits. Some money is in savings account for regular expenses." Nilkanth turned toward Nand. "This is actually a very common situation in India. Many retired people depend mainly on interest income after retirement. But most families never properly understand how taxation on this income works." Nand opened his notebook immediately. "Sir, first explain one thing. If Papa already paid tax while earning money earlier, then why is tax being charged again on FD interest?" Nilkanth smiled. "Good question. Tax is not charged on the original money invested in fixed deposits. Tax is charged on the interest earned from that money, because interest is considered income." Nand slowly nodded. "Oh, so the FD itself is not taxed again. Only the earnings from it are taxable." "Exactly," Nilkanth replied. Then he picked up one FD receipt and explained further. "Suppose uncle invested 10 lakh rupees in a fixed deposit and earned 70,000 rupees interest during the year. That 70,000 rupees becomes part of taxable income." Neeraj's father interrupted softly. "But banks already deduct some amount automatically." "That is called TDS, tax deducted at source," Nilkanth explained. "If the interest crosses the prescribed limit, banks deduct tax before paying the interest." "Sir, does that mean tax is already fully paid?" Nilkanth shook his head. "Not always. TDS is only a partial deduction. Final tax liability depends on total income and applicable tax slab. Income tax department charge income tax based on the income earning capacity of an individual and the tax rate applicable on the income earned by an individual. Sometimes excess tax gets deducted and sometimes additional tax still needs to be paid." Nand looked surprised. "So filing return becomes important even for retired people?" "Very important," Nilkanth replied calmly. "Many senior citizens ignore return filing because they think their income is simple. But filing return helps in claiming TDS refunds, maintaining financial records, avoiding notices, helping during loans, visas, investments, and future compliance." Then Nilkanth opened the income tax portal on his laptop. He carefully guided Nand step by step. First, they collected PAN card, Aadhaar card, bank account details, interest certificates from banks, Form 26AS, AIS, Annual Information Statement. Nand looked at the laptop screen curiously and asked, "Sir, one more thing. What exactly are Form 26AS and AIS? I keep hearing these names during income tax filing, but I never really understood them." Nilkanth smiled patiently. Very important question. Both Form 26AS and AIS help taxpayers understand what financial information the Income Tax Department already has about them.
Nilkanth continued, Form 26AS is like your income tax passbook. It is an annual tax statement issued by the Indian Income Tax Department that shows taxes deducted from your income, tax collected by the seller when you are purchasing high-value goods, and many other items. Nilkanth smiled and explained to Nand, whenever someone deducts tax in your name and deposits it to the government, that entry appears in Form 26AS. Nilkanth explained to Nand and his father, therefore, before filling your income tax return, you should always verify the 26AS to know what amount has been deducted from your salary and deposit in your PAN. For example, if the bank deducted TDS on your interest income and your tax liability is less than the TDS deducted by the bank, you will get the refund from the Income Tax Department. Form 26AS can be downloaded from the Income Tax portal. One thing you should remember, Form 26AS also reflects high-value transactions your PAN has been quoted during the last financial year. And if your income does not justify the high-value transaction, it may cause verification from the Income Tax Department. Other common mistakes people make where they ignore income declared in the return of income, mismatched with Form 26AS. They further ignore the TDS deducted by the bank on interest income, assuming TDS deducted by the bank is final tax, whereas final tax depends on total income and slab rate. Nilkanth further explained to Nand and his father, AIS means Annual Information Statement. It is a detailed financial report prepared by the Income Tax Department that shows almost all major financial activities linked with your PAN. It contains information about salary income, interest income, dividend income, and information about many other financial activities. AIS was introduced by the Income Tax Department to have better transparency, detection of mismatches, and reduction in tax evasion. We should always remember AIS does not automatically mean tax is payable on every entry. The entries may appear in AIS, but tax treatment depends on tax laws. We should always verify AIS before filling in the return of income to get to know about the income earned during the year. But AIS is not always 100% correct. Sometimes duplicate or incorrect entries may appear. Taxpayers can submit feedback online if any information is incorrect, duplicate, or not related to you. Then he explained another important concept. For senior citizens, deductions under Section 80TTB are available on interest income from savings accounts and deposits up to prescribed limits. Nand's father looked relieved. So, some tax benefit is available for retirees? Yes, Nilkanth replied. And if total taxable income remains below exemption limits after deductions, tax liability may become very low or even zero. Nilkanth suddenly noticed a document lying on the table labeled Form 15H. He picked it up, looked at Nand and asked curiously, "Do you know what this is?" Nand smiled nervously and replied, "No, sir, I don't." Nilkanth smiled patiently and began explaining. Form 15H is a self-declaration form mainly submitted by senior citizens to request banks not to deduct TDS on interest income, provided their estimated total tax liability for the financial year is nil. He further explained, this form is usually submitted to banks, post offices, and financial institutions at the beginning of every financial year, so that unnecessary TDS is not deducted from interest income. Nand's father listened carefully while Nilkanth concluded. In simple words, Form 15H helps eligible senior citizens avoid unnecessary TDS deduction on interest income when their final tax liability is nil.
Nilkanth advised Nand and his father, "It would be better if you take the help of a chartered accountant while filing your income tax return, because tax laws keep changing almost every year." Nand's father nodded thoughtfully, while Nilkanth continued calmly. "I explained all these concepts to both of you because filing the return is ultimately just a technical formality. But understanding your own finances is far more important." He smiled and added, "You should know your income, investments, taxes, deductions, and financial records better than even the CA who files your income tax return. Only then can you make smart financial decisions and avoid mistakes in the future." Nand looked at Nilkanth and asked, "Sir, do you know any chartered accountant who can help us file the income tax return?" Nilkanth smiled and replied, "Yes, of course. I know a very reliable chartered accountant named Pooja. She regularly helps individuals and senior citizens with income tax return filing and related tax matters." He then took out his mobile phone and shared CA Pooja's contact details with Nand and his father. Nand's father looked relieved. "That is wonderful. We were worried about making mistakes while filing the return." Nilkanth nodded and said, "That is exactly why professional guidance can be helpful." Nilkanth laughed gently. Income tax looks scary mainly because people avoid understanding basics. Once you know the structure, it becomes manageable.
As they prepared to leave, Nand looked thoughtfully at his father. For the first time, he truly understood something important. Retirement was not just about saving money. It was also about managing money wisely after retirement. While riding back home on his bike with his father, Nand kept thinking about everything he had learned that evening. Fixed deposit taxation, savings account interest, TDS, senior citizen deductions, AIS and Form 26AS. Importance of filing income tax returns even after retirement. And deep inside, he realized something even more important. Financial literacy is not only for earning people. Sometimes it becomes most important after earning stops.